competition. MJ 10, LeBron 9. Starting with LBJ, there's no question off the bat he has played some insane teams. Some of those include the 07 championship Spurs, the 08 championship and 2010 Celtics, and other great teams along the way. One thing with LeBron that we have to realize though, is that he played in the weaker Eastern Conference for the entirety of his playoff career so far. As we all know, looking at this with no bias, the Eastern Conference was worse all across the board essentially every single year in his career in the playoffs. Someone like LeBron, again with no bias, should have a much easier time waltzing his way to the finals. I mean, look at 2016. The East that year, aside from the Cavaliers, had the second-seeded Raptors, headed by All-Star Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, the Cavs' only quote-unquote real threat that year, while the West boasted the 73-9 Warriors, the 67-win Spurs-led Popovich team, and a third-seeded Oklahoma City Thunder team with Russ and Kevin Durant. Trust me when I say that if LeBron had to play any one of those teams before the finals, he would have either lost in a 7-game series or came out of it exhausted. Sure, of course there's been years when he's played teams like the Pacers or the Magic in the conference finals, but when it boils down to it, LeBron has had a pretty easy time getting to the finals, even though his teams haven't necessarily been very good, but that topic is for later. Regardless, he did play the Warriors 4 times in the finals, including 2 times with Kevin Durant, and that is a historic team, so I am still giving LeBron a 9 for competition. Going to MJ, we see overall, he of course also played some amazing teams. That includes the 80s Boston Celtics, the 80s Pistons, Magic's Lakers, and the Stockton Malone Jazz team twice in the finals. All the teams I mentioned there, except the Jazz, all won more than one championship during the time MJ played, essentially meaning that they're all historical, all-time teams. He also played the Drexler Trailblazers, the Barkley-led Suns, and Seattle Supersonics in the finals. When it comes down to it, Jordan has faced more all-time teams over the span of less time to even make the playoffs and play them in the first place. So, I believe that gives Jordan the nod of at least a 0.5 difference if we're being honest, but I'm giving him the full point here because he played 4 all-time historic teams, whereas LeBron only faced one twice, while having a much easier time in the 2010s Eastern Conference. Value: MJ 9, LeBron 10. With value, where do I even get started on how valuable LeBron James has been to the teams he's been on? I'd have to perfectly agree with even people who are completely biased towards LeBron, in that if you do take him off a lot of the teams he has played for, they'd likely be out of the playoffs or even a lottery team. Take LeBron off all the Cavs teams pre-Miami, they'd be in the lottery. Take LeBron off Miami, they'd be a decent seed, but do remember how weak the East was in the 2010s. Take LeBron off the Cavs teams after he returned, there's no Cleveland championship banner, and likely a first or second round exit with only Kyrie and K-Love. Take LeBron off the Lakers this year, and they'd be just like AD was on the Pelicans. So essentially, if you miss my point, if you take LeBron off any of the teams he's been on, they would suffer traumatically. Losing LeBron is like losing 2 or 3 All-Stars at once. It's that insane. So with that, no question, a 10 for LeBron in this category. Going to MJ, we also see that he too has meant a lot as well to his teams. Take MJ off any of those Bulls championship runs, and there's no championship banner in Chicago. We also see, however, that when MJ didn't play in 1994, the Bulls still won 55 games and made it as the 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference. That is pretty eye-popping to say the least, and that hurts MJ here, but there is no telling to see how much the Bulls really would have suffered without Jordan for a longer period of time. All I know, and the last time I checked, is that regardless, take Michael Jordan off the Bulls and they have 0 championships instead of 6. Regardless of if his teams would be in the lottery or not if he left, he was still the difference of 6 NBA championships for one organization. If that's not the definition of value, I don't know what is. I mean, can we really say that MJ was considerably less valuable to his teams than LeBron has been? But considering the kind of teams LeBron has played on and what they'd be without him, I'm giving LBJ a full point edge here, so MJ gets a slightly lower 9 for team value. Overall career help: MJ 7, LeBron 8. Starting with MJ, we see that he had talent to work with over his playing career. He had essentially no help to get past the Pistons or Celtics in the 80s, but once Scottie Pippen was there for wing defense and scoring, it made all the difference. Spanning from 1990 to 1997, he played with one All-Star during a season for 6 total seasons, and had 2 seasons where he made and won the finals with no other All-Star for that season, being in 1991 and 1998. We of course should count Scottie Pippen as an All-Star caliber player in those seasons, however. We also see that MJ played with solid bench help, with guys such as Horace Grant, Dennis Rodman, Tony Kukoc, Ron Harper, etc., etc. But in the end, he honestly didn't have as much help as many come to think on the surface, but he did have a fairly decent supporting cast. Now to LeBron. The narrative with LBJ is that he has had no help over the years with the teams he has played on, and to an extent that is true. For example, on the Cavs in both eras he played for them. However, we also see that there were only 2 seasons, being the same as MJ, that LeBron played where he made the finals without another All-Star for that entire season, those being in 2007 and 2018. Yes, he had no other All-Star from 2008 through 2010, and could not make it to the finals those years because of it. But we can also say the exact same thing here for MJ. Michael Jordan could not make it past the Pistons and the Celtics because he didn't have another All-Star with him, but once he got help, he was able to win, and the same thing can be said with LeBron. Once he got a D Wade and a Chris Bosh, once he got a Kyrie and a Kevin Love, he was able to win. In fact, LeBron played with 2 other All-Stars 4 times in the finals, being in Miami, and 3 times with 1 other All-Star in the finals, being in Cleveland, which is technically more help than even MJ had in the finals concerning All-Stars, but it balances out a bit due to the bench talent LeBron has had compared to MJ. Also, we do see that in 2007, LeBron made the finals with no help whatsoever, not even an All-Star caliber player, whereas in one of MJ's seasons with no All-Star making the finals, he had an All-Star caliber player in Scottie Pippen. So it was close, but I'm giving LeBron a 1-point edge here because of that one reason. He gets a slightly higher 8. Playoff performance: MJ 10, LeBron 8.5. Starting with LeBron, compared to the average Joe, he has overall played phenomenally in the playoffs, including putting up a 51-point triple-double in the finals, and many other breathtaking performances, and some clutch shots and plays, including that mid-range clincher against San Antonio in 2013, and the 2016 finals block against Andre Iguodala. However, looking at this again with no bias, in 2011, LeBron was the reason the Miami Heat lost to the Mavericks. He only had 3 games scoring 20 points or more, and in Game 4 scoring just 8 points on a pathetic 3 of 11 shooting with 4 turnovers. If he performed just somewhat of his usual self, Miami would have clinched that series in 5 or 6 games easily. We see that that was his only major mess-up in a playoff series, but it was a huge mess-up. It cost them the championship, one they should have won. But seeing that he has redeemed himself somewhat over the years, I'm still giving LeBron an 8.5 in playoff performance. With MJ, concerning playoff performance, where do I even start? Has this man ever crumbled under the bright lights of pressure? His highest final scoring game was 55 points in Game 4 of the 1993 Finals against the Suns, and he scored a playoff high 63 points against the all-time Celtics team. Whenever his team needed him to come through, he did. Whenever they needed a clutch shot, a basket, he came through. Of course, there were times in which he didn't score the most points or simply had a subpar performance in the playoffs. But we also see that MJ played in 6 NBA Finals without losing a single one, nor even going to a single Game 7, and he was the Finals MVP every single time. Some people may counter this and say that if LeBron had more help, even when he choked, he would have won the championship, but that's simply not true. The one year in which he did choke was in 2011, when he had a prime All-Star in Dwayne Wade and another All-Star in Chris Bosh. So, MJ gets a solid 1.5 edge here. And finally, to the last and final category of mentality. With this category, even though it can't be measured with numbers, I still think it deserves to be a full category. The greatest NBA player of all time should have the right mentality, and if they don't, I really believe that it should fault them, because for someone to be the GOAT of basketball and have a poor mentality, they'd have to make up for it big time with all the other categories. With LeBron, we can say that as of late, his mentality has been that of a killer. He has dropped amazing final performance after another, and he himself has said that if he leaves it all on the floor, he has nothing to regret, and he hasn't for the past couple of finals he's played in. But just as the last category showed, his overall mentality at times can falter. Whether it's due to succumbing to pressure, anxiety in the moment, or what, we see that he doesn't always have that killer mentality. An example of this is in the 2017 NBA Finals, where in Game 3, he could have taken the game right then and there with a drive to the basket. If he's the greatest player of all time, he's got to at least have the mentality to take that shot, regardless of making it or not. But he didn't shoot it. He passed it out to Kyle Korver for a bricked 3. Some may say that this was the correct basketball play, but if LeBron is the greatest NBA player in the history of the game, why couldn't he just take that shot? A lack of killer mentality at times will cost him big time, so I'm giving him a 7.5. Going to MJ, there's no need to even question his mentality. The look in his eyes when the game was on the line says it all, and his willingness to take the last second shot almost every time is proof that he was a killer. He also, as previously said, defended the greatest player on the opposing squad without fail. That is an assassin-type mentality, and it will earn him an unquestionable 10 for this one. And so, after everything is totaled, we see that the scores are ultimately very close. Michael Jordan ended with a total of 115 points, and LeBron James ended with a grand total of 112.5 points. So according to this, MJ is the greatest NBA player of all time. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I 100% agree with this, that MJ is in fact the greatest player of all time if you look at everything. I was as unbiased as possible in every single category and have analytics and facts to back it up. But as I said, these players are extremely close on the all-time rankings list, certainly both in the top 3 at the end of the day. Also, even though I went into more than a dozen categories with deep analysis of all of them, there could still be a flaw in my system potentially. Don't know what it could be or where it is, but if you disagree with me and see it, leave some comments down below on how I should have compared them, or what categories I should have compared them with. Anyways, this has been Deluxe Gamer. This video took me forever, so please leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed and made it this far. Don't kill each other in the comment section, keep it respectful, and peace.